Sergeant Aaron Cross with the Pima County Sheriff's Office told me that he got word from a detective that Nancy's family initially thought she may have walked away from the house, that's what they were told initially, which didn't really make a lot of sense based on some. They did not think that she actually walked away on her own, but instead thought maybe she had some kind of medical issue and called an ambulance on her own. So he says what he said initially was not correct, and again that Nancy's family did not think that she walked off.
On Sunday, Nancy Guthrie's daughter posted a video. It was Mother's Day, day 100, and Savannah Guthrie filled that video with photographs and clips of her mother laughing, living, being the woman her family has been missing every single day since February 1st. She wrote, "Mother, daughter, sister, Noni, we miss you with every breath. We will never stop looking for you. We will never be at peace until we find you. We need help. Someone knows something that can make the difference. Call 1-800-CALL-FBI. You can be anonymous and the reward remains available. Please keep praying. Bring her home." That was Savannah Guthrie on Mother's Day, the first Mother's Day without her mother. Savannah's husband, Michael Feldman, also posted that day. He shared a photo of Savannah with their 2 children and wrote, "To the strongest person I know, surrounding you with love on Mother's Day." He added a heart emoji and a broken heart emoji, both of them in one sentence, because that is exactly what this family is carrying: love and grief, sitting right next to each other with no resolution between them. 100 days is a number that is hard to sit with. That is more than 3 months. That is 14 full weeks of waking up and not knowing. Of Savannah going to work on the Today Show every morning and sitting behind that desk and doing her job, while somewhere in the back of her mind every single day is the question that nobody has answered yet. And this week, on top of everything else, she announced she will be hosting a new primetime game show based on Wordle for NBC next year, filmed in Manchester, England this summer. She thanked her producer Jimmy Fallon publicly for waiting for her. "When everything happened with me and my family," she said, "they just stopped everything and said, 'We'll wait for you.'" Savannah Guthrie is moving forward because she has to, because life does not stop, because her mother raised her not to stop. But she has not found her mother, and 100 days in, the people running this investigation cannot tell her where Nancy is. On Friday, May 8th, 2 days before the 100-day milestone, a Fox News digital reporter caught up with Sheriff Chris Nanos outside the Pima County Sheriff's Department. They asked him directly, "Are you any closer to solving this case?" He looked at them and said 2 words, "We are." He nodded, added that the developments were really great, and then got into his white Corvette and drove away. He did not elaborate. He did not give a single specific detail. 2 words and a car door closing behind him. Now, here is the thing about those 2 words. Sources who are actually close to this investigation are not saying the same thing. Sources who have been consistent and reliable throughout this entire 100-day period are saying that as of right now, there is not a specific suspect. There is not one clear lead where investigators feel like they are genuinely closing in. Tips are still coming in every day. The task force is still working. The DNA is still being analyzed. But we are getting closer, and we have something concrete, are 2 very different statements, and nobody on the inside is saying the second one yet. There was also a correction this week that needed to be addressed publicly. Last week, Sergeant Aaron Cross from the Pima County Sheriff's Office, who also serves as the Deputies Union President, said on the record that he had heard from detectives that Nancy's family initially believed she may have walked away from her home on her own. That claim landed hard because it directly contradicted everything Savannah Guthrie had said publicly. It contradicted the blood on the porch. It contradicted the disabled camera. It contradicted the locked house with her phone and her purse and her shoes still inside. Over the weekend, Sergeant Cross called back with a correction. He said he had followed up with those detectives and what they actually meant was different from what he initially reported. What the family thought in those very first confusing hours was not that Nancy walked off on her own. It was that she may have had some kind of medical emergency and called for help herself. An ambulance. Someone coming to take her somewhere for a health reason. That framing actually lines up with what Savannah told Hoda Kotb in her interview. She described her mother as someone who was in tremendous pain, whose back was so bad that on a good day she could walk to the mailbox and back, but most days not. She was not a woman who could have walked anywhere on her own in the middle of the night. So the correction matters, because the original claim created confusion about whether the family was ever operating under the belief that nothing was wrong. They were not. From the moment they arrived at that house on the morning of February 1st and saw the blood and the disabled camera and everything left behind, they knew something terrible had happened to their mother. What nobody knew and what remains unanswered 100 days later is exactly what that terrible thing was. What is confirmed is this. The DNA sample recovered from inside Nancy's home, described by the Sheriff's Department as mixed DNA, from more than one person was transferred from a private laboratory in Florida to the FBI for advanced analysis. The FBI is now using technology that was not widely available even a few years ago to attempt to extract a usable genetic profile from a rootless hair. If that profile comes back clean and does not match anyone in the federal database, investigators move to forensic genetic genealogy, the same method that identified the Golden State Killer after more than 40 years. Genetic genealogist Cece Moore, who has worked these cases for decades, told News Nation this week that extraction of SNP profiles from rootless hairs is now possible. Now we just have to hope that it is the person or persons, one of the persons who kidnapped Nancy, she said. That is where the forensic side of this investigation sits. And while the lab work continues, the political side of this case is about to reach a boiling point that could change the leadership of this investigation entirely. Because on Tuesday, the Pima County Board of Supervisors is holding a meeting and two of its members have announced they are prepared to move to remove Sheriff Chris Nanos from office. Not suggest it, not discuss it, move to do it. The man who has been the public face of this investigation for 100 days may not be in that chair much longer, and what happens at that meeting will shape everything about how this case moves forward from here. This is not the first time Nanos has been under pressure during this investigation. From the very first week, the decisions made at the leadership level of the Pima County Sheriff's Department created problems that career law enforcement officers say should never have happened. FBI Director Kash Patel spoke publicly on May 5th and said directly that the FBI was initially kept out of the investigation. Not delayed, not slow to arrive, kept out. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche followed up and acknowledged reports of friction between the FBI and local law enforcement, saying, "I've seen those reports. We are here to help. We don't like interagency squabbles. Nobody likes that." That doesn't help the investigation. The Pima County Sheriff's Department pushed back and said the FBI was promptly notified by both the department and the Guthrie family. Two very different versions of the same first week, and somewhere between those two versions is the truth about what happened in the earliest and most critical hours of this investigation. Retired FBI Special Agent Maureen O'Connell, who has followed this case and spoken about it extensively, put it plainly. The chaos of that first week was a leadership problem. It should not have happened. These are trained professionals who have practiced exactly this kind of coordinated response through something called Incident Command Systems, a structured protocol that exists specifically so that multiple agencies can work together without stepping on each other. When the FBI shows up to a command post, they know how to plug in. They bring their own computers, their own vehicles, their own communications infrastructure. They have specialists in everything from financial forensics to behavioral analysis to forensic genealogy, all of it ready to deploy. Patel said publicly that the FBI had hundreds of agents ready to go in those first days. Hundreds of trained federal agents sitting in hotels in Tucson, waiting for a call that Nanos reportedly did not make. Sergeant Aaron Cross, who has been one of the most candid voices inside the sheriff's department throughout this investigation, went further this week than he has gone before. He said directly that, in his view, Sheriff Nanos should have handed the investigation over to the FBI entirely, not partnered with them, handed it over. Cross said Nanos had hundreds of federal agents available to him and simply did not deploy them the way they needed to be deployed. He described the first week of the investigation as chaotic, not in a dramatic sense, but in a very specific operational sense. Detectives were reportedly not even able to communicate effectively with each other. The right hand did not know what the left hand was doing, and every hour of that chaos was an hour in the earliest and most time-sensitive period of a missing persons case. O'Connell said something that is worth hearing carefully. She said she cannot believe that a rootless hair is all investigators recovered from that scene. She said she simply will not accept that premise without someone proving it to her. In her experience, a house that was occupied by a living person, that had a struggle at the front door, that had a masked man inside it for 40 minutes, that house has more evidence in it than one hair. The question is whether all of it was collected properly, whether the doormat with the blood was taken, whether the door handles were swabbed, whether the entire property, the casita, the garage, every outbuilding was processed the way an FBI evidence response team would have processed it. She said that if she were advising the FBI right now, she would ask the Guthrie family to allow the FBI's full evidence response team back into that house, to go through it again from the front door to the back fence. Every surface, every room, every piece of fabric and hardware and flooring. Start over with the best forensic team in the country and see what they find that the initial chaotic response may have missed. That has not happened yet, but the pressure on this investigation to make different decisions than it has been making is building from every direction simultaneously. And on Tuesday morning, when those Pima County supervisors walk into their meeting and call the vote on whether to remove the man running this investigation, the entire country that has been watching for 100 days is going to be watching one more time. There is one more thread in this case that has come back into focus this week, and it deserves to be talked about directly: the question of Mexico. It has come up before, and it keeps coming back. Nogales, the main border crossing, is approximately 60 miles from Nancy Guthrie's home. Under normal driving conditions, you can be there in under an hour. The border crossing into Mexico at Nogales operates around the clock. When you drive into Mexico, according to people who have made that crossing, there are cameras, but no one stops you. No one asks questions. No one checks what is in your vehicle. You simply drive through. Coming back into the United States is an entirely different experience. Going in is nearly frictionless. A retired lieutenant from the Arizona Department of Public Safety, Dave Smith, raised a specific theory this week that caught the attention of investigators and analysts following the case. His view is that if Mexico was ever seriously considered as a direction the suspect traveled, that would have immediately elevated the investigation to a federal matter, triggering FBI jurisdiction in a way that would have been very difficult for local law enforcement to resist. And his observation was that there seemed to be a deliberate effort early in this investigation to keep the possibility of interstate or international movement off the table. The fastest way to keep the FBI from taking full control, he suggested, was to publicly deny that Nancy could have been moved across state or international lines. O'Connell responded to that theory carefully, but substantively. She said the FBI was already working the Mexico angle, regardless of what was said publicly. She said the Bureau had reached out to the Legat, the FBI's legal attaché in Mexico, and had queries running through the federal camera systems that monitor those border crossings. 3 border crossing points within close proximity to Nancy's neighborhood all had federal cameras. Investigators would have been looking at the time-stamped footage from those cameras during the window of Nancy's disappearance, not for a specific vehicle, because no vehicle description has ever been confirmed publicly, but for anything unusual during that period, any vehicle that drew attention, any pattern that did not fit. Whether Nancy was taken across that border has never been confirmed. What has been confirmed is that the desert between Tucson and the Mexican border is vast, harsh, and largely unsearched. The United Cajun Navy's offer to put thermal drones and cadaver dogs into that terrain, an offer that the Sheriff's Department has still not accepted, takes on a different weight when you consider that somewhere in Coppering, that desert, or somewhere across that border, or somewhere in the city of Tucson itself, there are answers to what happened to Nancy Guthrie that nobody has found yet. 100 days. A Mother's Day that came and went without her. A sheriff who climbed into his Corvette and said 2 words to a reporter and drove away. A daughter who is going back to work and hosting a game show and getting out of bed every morning because she has no other choice. And somewhere, someone who knows exactly who that masked man on the doorbell camera is and has not yet picked up the phone. The combined reward in this case is now $1.2 million. It is payable anonymously. You do not give your name. You do not go to a police station. You call 1-800-225-5324, which is 1-800-CALL-FBI, and you say what you know. That is all. One phone call, one piece of information that the right person has been sitting on for 100 days. Savannah said it best on Sunday. Someone knows something that can make the difference. If that someone is watching this right now, please make that call. For Nancy, for her family, for the neighborhood in Tucson where the yellow ribbons are still tied to the trees and a woman named Aldine still thinks about her neighbor every single day. If this case matters to you and you want to be with us the moment anything changes, please subscribe to the Confirmed Report and hit the notification bell. We verify before we report, every time. And tell us in the comments, do you think the Board of Supervisors should remove Sheriff Nanos from this investigation? We read every single one. We will see you in the next one.